Hello, everyone. My guest today is Susan Hunt Stevens. She's the founder and CEO of a company called WeSpire. She's a recognized expert in the use of social and game mechanics to drive positive behavior change and was named an EY Entrepreneur of the Year in 2015. Previously, she was GM and SVP at the New York Times Company, leading a large regional digital media division. Susan, are you ready to take us to the top?
Sure.
All right. Very good. By the way, do you miss your New York Times days or no?
It's exciting times to be in journalism. I am grateful every day to the good work that the New York Times and other journalists around the world do. I do not miss having to figure out that new business model to support said journalism.
That's more about what I was referencing, was not the tenacious nature of our nation right now, but more about the declining nature of the business model.
The business model, it was interesting. I was on the side of the business that was having to increasingly fund the side, which was the consumer. So the switch to charging for digital access, the switch to raising subscription prices because the ad model was just declining. And so, I was always on the side that got to see the growth, but there was always this urgency and this question of, would you be able to grow enough to be able to fund the first estate?
I like to call the folks in digital working in traditional journalism, you guys are the subsidizers in chief. Your revenue subsidizes the declining model, right?
Exactly.
All right. Let's talk WeSpire. What's the company do and what's your revenue model? How do you make money?
Sure. So we're an enterprise software as a service platform, and large, generally forward-thinking companies are using our platform to essentially design, run, and measure the impact of employee engagement programs. So we will go into a large company and help them run their sustainability initiatives, their social impact initiatives, things like volunteering and community engagement, holistic well-being programs, meditation and mindfulness, physical health, family work-life integration. And then most recently, we launched Positive Workplace Culture, which is a lot around diversity, equity, and inclusion, innovation, positive work, belonging, psychological safety, all those kinds of things. The model is we get paid on a per employee per year basis. So if they're running this program for every employee, there's a fee for every employee. If they're running it for a subset of employees, it's based on the number of employees. Okay. So very straightforward.
Very good. And I'm sure this varies a ton, and I don't want to go down every customer cohort, but on average, what's the company paying you per year, would you say?
So on average, on a per employee basis, it would be about $12 per employee per year. Higher if you're a smaller company per employee, lower if you're a larger company per employee.
Yeah, sorry. What I was more interested in is, generally, what are the team sizes that are using? Is this like a startup or more like a 10,000?
Very large companies. So we've got about 35 companies. They're almost all in the Fortune 500. They collectively have about 1.5 million employees around the world. So you get a sense it's tens of thousands and in many cases hundreds of thousands of employees.
Yeah. So just to be clear, those contracts, when you're landing these accounts, obviously you're not getting all 1.5 million employees immediately. Unless you're a genius and a wizard, which maybe you are, but that would be a whole new model. But generally speaking, generally speaking, when you're landing these logos, first tier ACV, are we talking like 100 grand, 500 grand, 100 grand's fair? Okay. So that's typically the pilot size.
Yeah. That's about a good way to say it.
And what's that test cohort look like? How many employees is that covering typically?
Around 10,000 employees.
Around 10,000. Okay, fair enough. Good. So you're able, from a kind of cohort, you mentioned, I don't know, can you mention somebody? Can we mention the customer in Austin you have?
Yes. On our website, there's some customers who have been fabulous enough to provide testimonials. So it's customers like Caesars Entertainment, MGM Resorts, Unilever, and Cox Enterprises and others who are using us. We have lots of bigger clients who we can't reference publicly, but it's what's been really cool to see over the last 5 years is it really has been, there's not a sector that we haven't worked with at this point. So we have healthcare clients, we have automotive, financial services, consumer products, tech, biotech, really a wide swath. And what they have in common is that they have recognized kind of two things. One is that being a force for good in this world is actually really good for business. So these kinds of programs that have, an environmental, a social, or a health impact also are helping them attract employees, retain employees, or helping employee performance. And then the programs themselves, like a sustainability program, has a really hard ROI in energy, waste, water, and fuel savings. And so what they're realizing is that there's this very strong connection between being a force for good in this world and inspiring employees to do things that enable the business to be a force for good and business outcomes.
Yep. So, I mean, those are all great. It makes complete sense. It doesn't, I'm curious here to get a sense of how fast this kind of space is growing. So put this all on a timeline for me. When did you launch?
So 8 years ago, and so 8 years ago, and just to give you a sense, 2 years ago, Gartner finally created a category at the end of 16 around what we do. They called it Worker Engagement Platform. They put 6 companies in the space, and they put it at the very, very beginning of the HCM hype cycle and said it's still 5 to 10 years from market maturity. So this has been a just grind it out 8 years.
So are you bootstrapped or have you raised?
So I've raised almost $10 million.
Okay, you did decide to raise. Why'd you decide to raise? Why not bootstrap?
In the beginning, we just couldn't build the technology with the enterprise features and security. And, so the clients that needed this were really, really big companies. But we started in the consumer space. And so we had built, kind of leveraging small amounts of capital. To make that switch to enterprise, we just had to add a lot. You had to be able to add security audits, operational performance, SLA performance, and things. And I needed to raise capital to be able to fuel that. Then the second piece of it was the enterprise sales model. We tried inside sales and other things that would be lower cost sales model. The reality is it's both, we're evangelizing a market, and these are really, really big clients. And so these are enterprise sales reps who sell this, and investing in that sales and marketing infrastructure is expensive as well.
So on that model, that sales model, what's your fully weighted CAC today? Is it like first year ACV or less than that or more? What is it?
Equal to it. It's a little bit better now than first year ACV. But in the first year, in the early days, it was like a CAC ratio of 1. We've now gotten it much better. It's almost, we almost improved
half,
double the CAC ratio.
So just to be clear, you've got it down now where you can spend $50,000 to acquire a $100,000 first year customer.
Exactly.
That's great. So payback period down to about 6 months.
If in a scenario where we're getting an average contract. If we're getting above average contract, it's paying it even faster. If we're getting a below average contract, but we see a lot, it's going to take a little longer to pay that off.
Well, just to be clear though, Susan, typically though, payback period, since the ratio on a bigger account, you'll spend more to acquire. So it's still usually is a 6-month payback.
For us,
that doesn't happen to you?
Crazy thing. It's not. It's pretty much the cost to acquire is pretty much the cost to acquire. And you know what? It's interesting in enterprise where we see the real expense. I mean, other than the commission expense, obviously, that's variable. But where we see the cost is it is the same to get through legal and InfoSec for a company that is licensing us to use with all their employees as it is to get through it for a company that's licensing this to use this with 10,000 of their employees. That's a fixed time, a fixed expense, a fixed weight. And then for us, implementation is pretty similar between the two as well. Whether you're going to run these campaigns for 10,000 people, run them for 100,000 people, there's not a lot of variable cost in that. So,
and what's your team size today?
So we're 20 people today.
And break that down for me. How many are kind of on this team, this machine you built for inside sales or sales in general?
So sales in general, sales and marketing in general is 4 people. And then we have 5 people in customer success. And you can't underestimate the importance of customer success.
Are they quota carrying CS folks or no?
They are not quota carrying, but they are responsible for upsell.
Interesting. Yeah. I've talked to a lot of CEOs at different kind of ARR ranges, even up in the 80, 90 million range. And no one really yet has presented a good plan for driving net revenue retention above 110, 120% based off the upsell capabilities of their CS and onboarding teams. Typically, they're not quota carrying. So the question then becomes, well, how do you incentivize them to drive the expansion ARPU if it's not the initial salesperson's job? You haven't found a good answer to that?
Well, so I think what we've found is that the people we hire are in CS motivated as much by their clients driving impact as they are by their own personal wallet. And it's the kind of people we hire. And so keep in mind that when these programs are working and they're expanding and they're growing, they're driving greater environmental impact. They're driving greater social impact. They're just doing more. They're more successful. And I think our customer success orientation has really been, how do we make sure that this program is really working and really successful and that we're proving this? And so they take an extraordinary amount of pride in expansion because it means the program is having greater impact. And I think that has been why, we're seeing this year so far 125% net positive, growth off our existing count base.
So just be clear, it's 125% net revenue retention.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, peel that onion back for me. So obviously part of that is expansion revenue, but then you have gross revenue churn under that. What is gross revenue churn in that same cohort?
So it's under 6% right now.
That's great. So you have about 31% expansion on the same cohort. That's great. That's super healthy. What are you typically, a lot of people have different pricing axes they drive expansion around. Is yours really just adding additional seats?
Well, seats and modules.
Modules. Okay.
So the other thing is that, there's 4 modules on the platform: sustainability, social impact, volunteering, and positive workplace culture. And so some of our clients have 1 and some have all 4. And so there's growth with taking somebody who has 1 and getting them to add a second or add a third or add a fourth. But then there's also growth for taking somebody who has 1 with 10,000 people and getting them to, to have more.
Yep. And just to be clear too, you mentioned 35 customers today and kind of your average ACV of $100,000 that first year. So it's fair to say you guys are north at this point of a $3.5 million run rate.
It's not something I can talk about publicly on video, but you do math well.
Oh, I was about to say, so I don't want to make them numbers. I'm just multiplying 2 numbers you gave me. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So north of that, and the growth rate of the whole company year over year is about what?
So we're a little less than doubling right now.
Okay, fairly. So to go back a year and you're calling at about a maybe 1.7, 1.8 million run rate. That's healthy growth.
We are getting there, slowly but surely.
Mostly,
but it's been a battle, as you can see. It took 8 years to get to here.
Mostly new customers driving your ability to double revenue, or is it really expansion?
It's really, you just heard our expansion revenue numbers. Those are pretty good.
Yep. Very good. Any channel sales strategy or anything like that, or it's all pretty direct?
So we have just initiated several partnerships that we're really excited about. Since we are designing and running engagement programs, many of our clients have rewards platforms like a Global Force or Achievers or Merits, BI Worldwide, things like that. And increasingly, we are doing partnerships with those rewards platforms so that a company not only can do manager and peer-to-peer recognition and rewards, they now can do programmatic recognition and rewards using WeSpire. So we have an API level integration now with Achievers, for example, and then have signed a partnership with them. There's also some platforms in the employee donation giving matching space. And we're very good at getting employees to give, but we don't want to do the, processing and moving money to not-for-profits globally. That's a very different business. And so we will partner with a Your Cause, who's in Texas, like you are, a Benevity and people like that, and be able to.
But are they bringing you customers, or you're just giving them traffic and customers?
Both.
Okay.
We have formal partnerships with some of the players and informal partnerships, some it's just driving traffic back and forth. But we have reseller partnerships with some of those as well.
And you said 20 folks on the team. Where's everybody based?
It's all over. Northeast, but we have people primarily in Boston. It's where we're headquartered. But we have sales folks in New York, and then we have some development up in Vermont.
Kind of a Northeast. And when was you mentioned $10 million in terms of what you raised? We didn't put that on a timeline though. So you launched obviously about 10 years ago or 8 years ago, 2010. Did you raise most of that back in the early years, or when was the last raise?
So let's see. The time frame was we did a seed in 2010. Then we did our A in 2015.
Okay. And what were the numbers on both those?
So it was a little south of 2 million on the seed and a little north of 6 on the A.
Got it. And that was 2015?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we've got a convert to a B that we're in the middle of.
What does that mean?
We're doing a convertible note right now that will become part of a formal B round when we go and raise a B round. Okay.
So typically when I hear about this, it's typically like a bridge round to your Series B. You want to buy a little more time to be able to grow into a valuation that you really want to get your Series B term sheet at. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. And when you say convertible note, are you doing this, is this like venture debt, or no, it's a convertible note, like a safe note?
It's a convertible note.
It is a convertible note. Okay.
Yep.
Very, very good. All right. Let's wrap up here with the famous 5. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
Good to Great.
Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying right now?
Elon Musk.
Can't help but watch. Yeah, number three.
I've always loved him, and I'm cheering for him. And I really, really hope that we're all driving electric cars here in the future. So I'm cheering for him.
Number three. What's your favorite online tool for building your business?
Salesforce.
Number four. How many hours of sleep are you getting every night?
6.5, according to my Fitbit.
That's pretty good. And what's your situation? Married, single, kiddos?
Married, a 14-year-old, 11-year-old, and just rescued a puppy.
Oh, wow. We'll call it 2.5.
Chiefly responsible for that sleep number going down.
Yeah, that's funny. And Susan, do you mind me asking about how old you are?
No problem. I am 48 years old.
48. That's great. And last question. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
Oh, my goodness. Candidly, I think I wish my 20-year-old self knew that it gets better every single decade.
Guys, it doesn't get worse. It doesn't get worse every decade. It only gets better. Coming from Susan, launched WeSpire back in 2010, raised $10 million to build this platform that helps with employee engagement, employee giving back, just employees bettering the world. Honestly, they're currently at about 35 really enterprise customers. These are big teams, 10,000, 20, 50, 100,000 person teams using them. They've just passed about a $3.5 million run rate, doubling year over year from both expansion and new customer additions. Economics are healthy, 125% net revenue retention annually, and that's about 6% gross revenue churn under that number. $50,000 to acquire a $100,000 customer. Payback is healthy, under 6 months. 20 people between Boston and other remote locations building up this bad boy. Susan, thank you for taking us to the top.
Thank you. Bye-bye.